some PFI leaders had links with terrorist organizations like ISIS and Al-Qaeda. The NIA has made this comment while asking for more time to investigate the arrested PFI leaders. The original hearing in which these revelations were made was for extension of custody of these PFI accused. The special court later extended the remand period of the PFI leaders for another 3 months, but investigations have now thrown up some sensational details. Some of the PFI leaders encouraged vulnerable youth to join terrorist organizations like LET, ISIS in Syria and Al-Qaeda. Those are the allegations that the NIA has now gone on record to make. Neetu, my colleague, joins us for more on this. Neetu, many of these allegations have been under investigation for a very, very long time now, even before PFI and its affiliates were banned. But the global network and the links with not just Al-Qaeda or even ISIS, links with LET are also something that now the NIA has gone on record to say.
The NIA has gone on record and said this, but if we ask like what is the evidence that they have shown so far in this, what they have said is that they have certain documents that they have retrieved, digital evidences that they have retrieved, and they are checking this, and the preliminary assessment of this is what they are saying that this has happened, and they have recovered a list of targets whom they have made, and also that they have taken vulnerable youths to they were using them to join LET, ISIS as well as Al-Qaeda. And the NIA also went on to say that there was the plan was to turn India into an Islamic nation by the use of violence, by the use of violent jihad. So these were some of the allegations that has been made, and what the NIA has told the court is that all these needs to be assessed, further investigation is needed, and they need more time to look into all these digital evidence and then carry on with the investigation, and that is why they have asked for this extension.
Right, and that extension has been granted is what we're given to understand. Neetu, do stay on with us, because let's put this in perspective for our viewers of what exactly are the claims or the revelations that have been made by the investigating agencies in court as far as the PFI is concerned. Now, the NIA went to tell court today, went to tell the court when this case was being heard, is that the PFI had something called a secret reporters wing. What this wing did was they prepared a list of potential targets. They collected information. PFI cadres posed as reporters and collected that information of leaders of other communities. They then went on to prepare the list of potential targets, and training was imparted to PFI cadre for subversive activities. The modus operandi that the NIA says was followed in imparting that training needs further investigation, which is why they sought this extended custody. There is also a global network that the NIA spoke of. The NIA went on to say that PFI or some of its cadres encouraged youth to join LET, ISIS, Syria and the Al-Qaeda. Some PFI cadre propagated ideology of ISIS in Syria, and some of them even traveled to Syria for joining the ISIS. That's the allegation that the NIA is making, all of which requires thorough investigation, which is why they were building a case to seek further extension of these accused arrested PFI. Now, larger conspiracy is in place. It is to make the cadre join the ISIS, and that really is something that needs investigation, is what the NIA told court. RVS Mani, former Undersecretary of the MHA, will be joining us shortly, but security analyst Pathikrit Payne is with me on this broadcast. Pathikrit Payne, these allegations that have been made against the PFI are something that are under investigation for several months, several years now. Even before the ban, there was the linkages of PFI with global terror networks that was under the scanner.
Well, first of all, if you look at the manner in which PFI has been operating, it has been extremely sophisticated. There has been a lot of discretion that they use, and there was always this apprehension that they have been trained thoroughly by certain agencies abroad. Secondly, there is an organization called Nordic Monitor, which came up with photographic evidence to try to vindicate that there is the Turkey-based NGO called IHH, which is basically a jihadist organization linked to the Turkish intelligence agency and which is affiliated to Al-Qaeda organizations and Al-Qaeda network. PFI has been having a lot of strong networks for understanding and meeting with that organization. And that is where a lot of suspicion comes from. Thirdly, if you look at it, there has been, a lot of people have been talking about the manner in which a large number of youth from Kerala were sent to fight for ISIS in Syria, and there were allegations of PFI being involved in it. If you look at the manner in which PFI has been operating, it is very similar to the manner in which Muslim Brotherhood operates in Egypt. So it is not a new modus operandi. And of course, the issue of fund comes in. It is an extremely sophisticated organization, works seamlessly with officers abroad, and the manner in which money laundering happens, they keep very little trail. So while NIA's suspicions are certain things which have been in the public domain for a long period of time, of course, it has to be kept in mind that PFI also would have very strong lawyers to try to defend themselves. So under the law, while they have to prove it in the court of law, but PFI has never been as an organization above suspicion, and therefore, while the government has done the right thing in terms of banning the organization, we have to remember that the elements which are part of PFI have scattered and they remain intact. So the possibility of them having overlapping allegiance to other organizations or operating for others is always a reality, and I'm sure many of them are still operating. That's a real concern and a challenge. Last but not the least, PFI was always an organization whose job was to radicalize youth, and those radicalized youth were then exhorted to join any of the organizations, either Lashkar-e-Taiba or an ISIS, or work like Lone Wolf, or become part of radicalized youth doing organized mob violence. So these evidences have been there for a long period of time. The apprehensions have been there. Now I think it's important to collate those evidences and create a hard case. And it takes time because there is an international aspect to it. Of course, these organizations are so sophisticated. They do not keep a trail behind, so it will take time. And I think NIA is in the right direction. Of course, they require time, and I'm sure the judiciary will give them time.
Absolutely. And the fact that this organization has been banned, that definitely helps in speeding up the process of investigation against them. But RVS Mani, I want you to put in perspective for our viewers of the ramifications that this would have as far as the global linkages are concerned. It's not just about a certain ideology of the Al-Qaeda or of ISIS Syria that has been propagated by PFI cadres. There are also evidences prima facie of financial transactions that have taken place across the border from these organizations perhaps. So even though the PFI is now banned, how do we break this particular nexus as far as the financial transactions go?
Financial transactions do come under the ambit of FIU, in which India is a member, and we are also established a very strong FIU, from where certain cash transactions get reported, certain suspicious transactions are monitored. That is the institutional mechanism. But larger than that, there are several ways, like even a simple thing like the PFI almost takes over the sale of hides and skins during the Kurbani area. This is a very clear-cut case. From there also, even fake currency, debit cards, Habib, the certain Pakistani banks, debit cards with the payment gateway, they have some arrangement from thereafter. It is all, in fact, I have documented these things in my book. In fact, it is out of a parliament question. There are several ways the terror funding happens. And not just Pakistan, from Turkey, from Malaysia, and so many other places, these do happen. That is where it is a challenge there. See, banning the organization, PFI, I'm very happy that it has been banned. It was long overdue. Having said that, but the PFI itself can come back in several ways. And also the Zakat contribution is one of the major sources of income for funding terror.
Right.
Let's be very clear about it. Zakat, whatever in the belief may be a very noble idea, but what is really happening is the reality check is Zakat is used for funding terror. Similarly, sale of hides and skills during the Kurbani season, the Eid al-Zuha, that is also a huge. It may look very simple for that, but it's all linked to the leather industry, and leather industry exports are going at around 45% annually. So see the nexus and see the amount of money which gets generated out of that. Similarly, under invoicing, cross-border trade, everywhere coming through Nepal routes. Nepal route is one ripe route which is throwing a lot of funding into the country. So there are several other, and High Commission in Nepal itself, Pakistani High Commission itself is able to send huge sachet of. This has been recorded. I'm not speaking out of my mind. They are all a matter of fact. It has been recorded in several parliament questions, also replies into it has been traditionally happening.
Sure.
And also the see now the CBS and a lot of strong reiteration, strong of safeguards have been introduced in the core banking system. In spite of that, there are a lot of fake accounts which are opened, which are thrown out, and also the criminal nexus, drug peddling, see, if the Jalalabad yield is higher, the terror activities in India goes up. That is the nexus. It can be very clearly established. In fact, before Benazir Bhutto in '88, he became the PM. The Kashmir problem happened, and the center of gravity of drug peddling shifted from Latin America to Pakistan. So that is the nexus. So drug is one of the areas.
Absolutely, narco terror is something that India has been battling, especially as far as Pakistan is concerned.
Today also the Home Minister.
Yes, today also the Home Minister spoke about it in Parliament. Yes, of course. And it's interesting that you and it's interesting, RVS Mani, that you speak of how there are new forms that such organizations can take, because that is exactly how PFI was formed. It was SIMI that morphed into PFI.
Exactly.
Now that PFI is banned, do we have a threat perhaps of sleeper cells of the PFI that perhaps are still active, and is there a mechanism to deal with that as well?
There is a mechanism, but the state government have to come together with the center on this. See, these are all anyhow have to come with a institutional structure, some sort of a name, some sort of a, and the register, and they are registered under Society Registration Act, which are administered by the state government, whether the Register of Societies or Charity Commissioner or NGO or whatever it is, because they are not corporate. Let us be very fact about it. They will come out in several other ways. Whether it's a society, welfare society, education society, medical society, or whatever it is, you have to be keeping on monitoring those people who are the promoters of those type of NGOs or whatever it is, whatever shape it takes. And from there only, the absolute monitors, like as I said, for the financial transaction, there is the intelligence unit specifically dedicated for that. Like this, for this type of institution cropping up in different states, you require another institutional unit which will monitor all the registration from all the state governments.
Sure.
It has to be centralized monitor. Only then it can be a problem, easily come to the light. Otherwise, because the promoters will be the best giveaway. So
absolutely, there has to be a synergy between agencies, between state governments and the center, and that's really important to tackle a menace or tackle a radical organization like the Popular Front of India or any other forms that it would come up in. And Pathikrit Pain, one of the new revelations or one of the things that the NIA has spoken of in this particular affidavit is that the secret wing of reporters or journalists is something that the PFI worked on, and they sort of collected information as far as preparing a hit list of sorts was concerned. And Pathikrit Pain, if you recollect, one of the instances in recent memory would be the Hathras case, where one of the accused, Siddiq Kappan, was actually believed to have links with the PFI. So that is also something that fits into the allegations that the NIA has now made.
Yeah. So let's understand, first of all, when Pakistan realized that it cannot win a conventional war, they went into a sub-conventional war, which is about terrorism. Now, when they realized that terrorism itself is not working because it is galvanizing the country, they went into something called the hybrid mode, wherein you actually, you capitalize on the fissures in the society, and you pit one community against the other, and then you move for more violence, and you create an anarchy kind of situation. Herein, there would be overground workers like the terror organizations like Lashkar-e-Taiba or Hizbul Mujahideen have overground workers who mix with the public but live like normal people, but otherwise they have an ulterior objective of furthering the extremist war. In this case, some elements actually work as reporters, because as reporters they get access to information, they get access to places, and at the same time, when you write as reporter in mainstream papers or other portals, you actually get validation. Then you can change the narrative. Then you can slowly put your narrative, your vicious narrative, in a slow poisoning way. You can embed it into the society so that the society starts sympathizing with your cause, and you put in your cause into a normal, otherwise issue between two groups. So this is where this issue is very dangerous. And this is what we have to understand, that terror organizations or radical Islamist organizations or any kind of radical extremist organization, they are also extremely sophisticated, entities. They have intelligent people. They keep on mutating. They keep on evolving. So once you defeat one kind of terrorism, it doesn't mean that violence or their objective will stop. If you look at PFI, as Mr. Mani also rightly mentioned, PFI as an organization may have been disbanded, but the elements who have been radicalized by PFI, they may not be sitting silent. They are not static. They are doing their work in some of the other way. And that is where the danger comes. Please understand, in this war, in this era of social media and WhatsApp, information war or the disinformation war is the most dangerous thing.
Absolutely, and wars are being fought on several fronts and several proxies, and the digital era, like you mentioned, that is also something that is extremely dangerous, and disinformation or misinformation on those platforms is something that can be disseminated at an extremely quick pace, and that's really the challenge to kind of counter that. The ban on the Popular Front of India is the first step in tackling groups like these. There is a long way to go still. The NIA needs to work with state agencies. There has to be a synergy between all the agencies so that we can put up a united front against terror and ensure that internal security of India is maintained. And that is something that everyone will have to come on the same page and work on. I thank you both gentlemen for joining us here on this broadcast with your perspective. But for now, we're shifting focus to more news coming in. News coming in now from Uttar Pradesh, where the UP Madrasa Board has gotten a suggestion to fix weekly offs in madrasas on a Sunday, and that has now triggered a massive controversy. A proposal was made during one of the sessions, or one of the meetings that was held of the UP Madrasa Board, where the suggestion was made that instead of a Friday weekly off, Sunday should be fixed as a weekly off like in every other school as well. But now opposition coming to the fore, clerics raising objections.
मदरसा बोर्ड की जानिब से किसी जिम्मेदार की जानिब से जो ये बात कही गई है कि जो मदरसे की छुट्टी है वो जुमे की बजाय हफ्ते या शनिचर या इतवार को कर दी जाए, ये बात मुझे लगता है मदरसों के ताल्लुक से सही नहीं होगी, क्योंकि मदरसों में पढ़ने पढ़ाने वालों को कहीं ना कहीं इमामत भी करनी होती है और जुमे के फ़राइज़ भी अंजाम देने होते हैं। इसलिए मदरसों की छुट्टी के ताल्लुक से जुमे का दिन ही बेहतर रहेगा, और इसलिए मेरा यही कहना है कि छुट्टी के सिलसिले में जो बातें मदरसा बोर्ड की जानिब से कही जा रही हैं उसको जुमे ही की छुट्टी पर बरकरार रखा जाए तो ज़्यादा बेहतर कदम होगा।
Pranchu, my colleague, is now with me for more on this. Pranchu, this is just a proposal at the moment. A final decision will only be reached next month when the UP Madrasa Board reconvenes. But what is the rationale that has been given behind such a proposal?
Yes, that's right. In fact, it was, the opinion of a lone member of the Madrasa Board, and his suggestion was actually overruled in the meeting that took place in Lucknow yesterday. But yes, it is of importance because at least there is this discussion which has started in Uttar Pradesh, that too within the ambit of the Madrasa Board, that why not shift the weekly off to Sundays rather than Fridays. Now, people who have actually mooted this idea, their argument is that entire government setup, including the offices, the minority affairs ministry, the concerned secretariat, everything is closed on Sunday, and therefore, opening the madrasas on Sunday often comes up with very technical difficulties in terms of reaching out to the officials concerned in case any need is required. And therefore, the argument is that instead of Friday, this weekly off should be done on Sunday. But again, for information of our viewers, this was the opinion suggestion from one of the lone members. It has been, not adopted by the Madrasa Board, but yes, it clearly opens the possibility of chorus growing more for the demand of weekly offs in madrasas on Sundays. So we'll have to see what happens in time to come, whether the Madrasa Board actually endorses it or not, and what does the government finally has to say upon it. But as of now, the controversy clearly has been started when this issue was brought up in the Madrasa Board meeting yesterday.
And this controversy has actually erupted because as far as the Yogi government is concerned and madrasas are concerned, there has been back and forth on multiple issues in the recent past, including the survey that was conducted, which is why many are now seeing this as an attempt by the state government to target madrasas in the state.
Well, yes, see, that could be one argument. We have spoken to some of the Muslim clerics, and they clearly seem alarmed on the very suggestion of this intent that the weekly off should be on Sundays. But as far as the survey was conducted, the government has often has come forward and has tried to suggest that it was done with no malified intention, no madrasa has been barred, and the only process it was done was to ensure that proper affiliation of madrasas takes place. And it's still not necessary that any madrasa operating in Uttar Pradesh needs to be registered to the madrasa board only and only. It can also choose any other university for its registration. So I think the government has clearly has been able to, win the confidence on the survey issue. But as far as this new topic is concerned, concerning the weekly offs, it still needs these prominent Islamic clerics to take on board. But as far as the government is concerned, this is still not the idea that has been mooted by the government. It was a suggestion made by one of the members on the madrasa board, and that suggestion too has not been endorsed at the moment.
Right, Pranju. Do keep a track of the controversy that this has sparked and the reactions that come to the fore. But for the moment, thank you so much for getting us the latest. With that, we're slipping into a quick break here on this edition of Nation at 5. But lots more lined up for you on the other side. Do stay tuned.
Was anticipated, or people were fearing of that Taliban will start doing this thing. There were a lot of opinion, and experts try to allay those fears of Taliban and saying that let them have another chance. Maybe Taliban have changed. Taliban the 2-0 have little moderate views on the fundamental aspect of his theology and ideology. But it looks like with almost more than 1 year being there in Kabul, Taliban is strictly trying to implement what it was fundamentally an organization of very conservative theories and conservative concepts regarding society and how it should operate. While it is having a relation with some countries in the region, these issues of women education, issues of minority communities, issues of non-inclusive government that Taliban is currently boasting, and discriminatory ways of dealing with people, their primitive way of punishing people, law and justice system, everything is very sham. And with the United States also saying that the decision of not letting women have education is an indefensible decision.
The Taliban has officially announced the suspension of women's education in Afghanistan. Taliban has announced the closure of universities for women in Afghanistan. This is according to a letter by the Taliban's higher education minister. The letter states that all universities will remain closed for women until further notice. Top sources in Taliban told CNN News 18 that this ban is temporary and they will come back with new curriculum soon. Protest has started in Kabul last evening after this announcement. Earlier, Taliban had banned secondary education also. Now, to give us more details on this, I am being joined live by my colleague Abhishek Jha. Abhishek, further gags on women's freedom?
Of course, and this is not the thing that was not being expected, because initially, ever since Taliban has came into power in Kabul and almost all of Afghanistan, they have tried to increasingly ban women's participation in social arena. That includes education, because that is one of the most important area. Initially, they barred women from going to colleges. Then they separated, boys students from girls students. The classes continued. It was always a hiccup. It was always difficult for women to attend classes. In fact, in various rural areas of Afghanistan, women were barred from having even primary education. So there were multiple type of prohibition imposed on women education in Afghanistan. But now with the latest dictate that has come from the Afghanistan's official minister, it looks like the total blanket ban has been imposed in women education. And it is coming at a time when world is increasingly integrating women workforce in its prosperity, in its development. And Afghanistan, which is dealing with a lot of economic crisis and social crisis, at this time it is trying to prohibit 50% of its population from becoming part of its mainstream growth, is something that is not going to do well to the Afghanistan economy and its social milieu.
Abhishek, the last time on such a clampdown was imposed, we saw some protests happening. This time on, what is the reaction that's coming forth?
So there has always been protests. In fact, we have seen how women, like even in small groups, they tried to come on streets and protest to Afghanistan. They stood guard to colleges and students and schools. They tried to protect their rights. even in the thrashing, in the face of thrashing and beating from Afghan soldiers and their recruits. But it looks like that now Afghanistan, when they have total control of the territory, and they have started imposing their brutal and ruthless ruling. Not much of the protests could be seen on the streets because they are literally taking people, detaining them. People are disappearing because of protests and the rights that they demand from the Afghan's current government, that is Taliban rulers. So maybe not that much of protest, but yeah, internationally it has invited a lot of condemnation, including from United Nations and including USA. So, like, while international agencies and countries would continue to work towards humanitarian aid and assistance to the people of Afghanistan, women and girls of Afghanistan, education is something that the government and the local authorities in Afghanistan will have to ensure. And if they try to bring a law where women are not allowed to attend schools, then probably not much can be done by the international agencies or the outside forces in Afghanistan.
Well, this indeed is grave situation emerging in India's neighborhood. Abhishek, if I may request you to continue to be with us, there's some more breaking news that's coming in now. Now, India on women's rights issue in Taliban, we hear Ruchira Kamboj, who's the permanent ambassador of India to the United Nations, at UNSC briefing on Afghanistan. She says concerns have also been expressed on the further erosion of human rights, including the rights of women and girls, as well as the lack of progress on inclusive governance. India also raised an alarm over relations between Taliban and Al-Qaeda remain close and is underscored by the presence both in Afghanistan and in the region. Concerns have been expressed that the group has reversed policies and gone back on commitments made prior to assuming the power. Now, Abhishek continues to be with us. Abhishek, this is India registering some strong protest about the developments in Afghanistan.
Yeah, Vinaya, and everything that happens in Afghanistan is a concern to India, because everything that is bad in
Welcome back. Let's now get you some inside scoop from Pakistan, and this is a CNN News 18 exclusive. It looks like Chinese nationals are not safe in Pakistan. Chinese officials working for the CPEC have now written to the Sindh government over security concerns. The CNN News 18 has accessed that letter, which has now been written to Sindh authorities by the Chinese nationals over rising threats to Chinese citizens in Pakistan, all of whom are employees or staff members. Chinese construction company has requested the Sindh government and to ensure security to the local staff and to Chinese nationals. They've also listed the number of attacks that have taken place on these Chinese nationals ever since CPEC project has begun in Pakistan. Sushant Sareen, Strategic Affairs expert and a senior fellow at the ORF, now joins us on this broadcast. And Sushant Sareen, Pakistan in these specific regions has been feeling the heat from what they call our militants, from the rebels. And that clearly is something that China is not going to let that go now, because for years together they've been raising these kind of attacks and targeted ones at Chinese nationals.
Yes, and for these threats and these incidents, I think both China as well as Pakistan are to blame. Pakistan because, these were the snakes which the Pakistanis raised on their soil. And in the case of China, the Punjabi elite of Pakistan, which controls Pakistan, Pakistan is nothing but Punjab, really. And everybody else is a colony of Pakistan. They have always been seen as oppressors of the smaller nationalities like the Sindhis, the Baloch, even the Pashtuns. Now, on top of that, with the CPEC projects coming in and with the development with Chinese characteristics, many of these smaller nationalities see the Chinese as oppressors upon oppressors, right? So there is clearly a very strong resistance to the Chinese among the smaller nations of Pakistan, all of whom would want to ensure that the Chinese presence is reduced to the minimum as far as Pakistan is concerned. It's bad enough having the Punjabis rule over you, but when you have the Chinese on top of that, then, the oppression doubles. So I think there are two major factors. One is, of course, the Islamist factor, and the second is the nationalist factor. But on top of it all, the Chinese don't really endear themselves to anybody because the Chinese live in separate colonies. They have a completely different culture. For example, the Chinese love their pork, and they do, make their pork and import it into Pakistan. And Pakistan, being a predominantly Muslim country, abhors that particular meat. So there are a number of other cultural factors which also come into play, and I think this is something which is only going to grow as things move forward.
And as these things grow, do you think that is going to have an effect on the ties between China and Pakistan? Because they have been fair weather allies, come what may, as far as either Pakistan being globally cornered is concerned, or even China for multiple reasons. Do you think this is something, the CPEC project, the kind of attacks these Chinese nationals have been facing over the years, at least 10 since 2016, as per that particular letter that we've accessed, do you think that is something that is water under the bridge as far as relations between the two countries are concerned, or is that something that will have an effect on those ties?
No, look, it depends on what kind of relations we are talking about. As far as the people-to-people relations are concerned, of course, it will have an impact, number one. Number two, one of the reasons for CPEC was that Pakistan and China always had a strategic relationship. They wanted to give a certain economic heft to that relationship. Now, clearly, Pakistan is a failed economy. It's an economy which survives on handouts from the Arabs, from the Chinese, from all sorts of other people. And the Chinese know that there is no economic purchase in continuing to invest in Pakistan. They can extract what they want, but there's really no real economic potential in Pakistan. So the economic relationship will also take a hit. Along with it, there is the security factor, which will dissuade many Chinese and companies to come and work in Pakistan or to set up shop in Pakistan. But as far as the strategic relationship is concerned, I think that is likely to continue for the foreseeable future. Pakistan will remain dependent on China, number one. The Chinese will want Pakistanis on their side, partly because, it's like a dog snapping at India's heel. So it serves a very useful purpose for the Chinese. And in fact, the India factor is the glue that keeps the strategic relationship between China and Pakistan together. Otherwise, what does Pakistan bring to the table? The CPEC thing is, I think, very marginal. The CPEC does not address China's Malacca dilemma. It does not really, it's not something which is an economically hotspot where the Chinese can actually, divert some of their industry and make money out there. I think that's out of the window. Sure. So the only strategic utility of Pakistan for China is the mutual hostility and enmity of both these countries against India.
And as we speak and as we speak of the mutual hostility, I request you to stay on with us because China is clearly not going to end their provocations with India, against India, along the line of actual control, because nearly 2 weeks after the Tawang clash between Indian and Chinese troops, a study that has now been conducted by an Australian Strategic Policy Institute says that China has constructed a sealed road which leads to an area which is just about 150 meters away from the LAC ridgeline. The study further says that the PLA can now access key locations on the Yangtze Plateau more easily than it could 1 year ago. The construction of this sealed road also means the Chinese troops can now be more easily deployed in this particular region. These are the Maxar satellite images that we've accessed for you here on CNN News 18, which show a few different airports, different fighter aircraft that are stationed there as well, and a possible expansion work that seems to be taking place. Sushant Sareen continues to be with us on this broadcast, but former ADG of Territorial Army, Major General V.K. Datta, also with us. And Major General Datta, I would like to get you in on this as far as the kind of military build-up that China has been doing all along the line of actual control from eastern Ladakh to Arunachal. It looks like China is not going to end any of these provocations, even though we've had several military negotiations as far as de-escalation in eastern Ladakh is concerned.
See, you are absolutely right. As far as China is concerned, it is not now recently that it started making the infrastructure. Chinese have been developing the infrastructure along the entire LAC for many years. Starting with their highway to Xinjiang through the Aksai Chin, Then they building their roads right up to the LAC. And we unfortunately had a policy that we will not build our infrastructure for security reasons so that the Chinese cannot cross over and get an easy access into a territory, which I think was absolute fool's way of thinking. But now, as it stands today, India has started a big drive towards building our own infrastructure. You must be aware that since 2014 onwards, massive amount of road construction has gone in. Tunnels are being made in most of the important passes, whether it is in the Ladakh sector. Rohtang Pass has been opened, you are aware of the tunnel. In the eastern sector itself, in Arunachal Pradesh, the government has made a massive sanction of 1.6 lakh crore of money for the infrastructure development and roads, bridges and tunnels. Out of that, 4,000 crore is dedicated to Arunachal Pradesh itself. And in Arunachal Pradesh, while the Chinese were much ahead of us in making their road infrastructure right up to the LAC, but we are now catching up slowly and gradually. And I'm very sure in the time to come, all the roads which are needed for our troops to move up in a quick time to the LAC, in particular, if we talk about Arunachal Pradesh, it consists of about 4 major river valleys, and there are about 5 rivers which flow down from the watershed down towards India. Now, the movement in these areas only through the valleys. There was no lateral cross movement between the valleys. But now what we are doing is we are connecting ourselves laterally, horizontally, and from the baseline. Not only that, Brahmaputra River, which had to be crossed from Assam side to send in anything towards Arunachal, we had to use those boats and ferries and all that. We only had one odd bridge near Tejpur. We have now made more bridges. We are making a tunnel under the Brahmaputra to go across, which cannot be interdicted by the enemy.
Yes.
We are making a lateral road north of the Brahmaputra connecting the entire baseline of Arunachal. We are building roads from that lateral going upwards to every valley. We are also now interconnecting the valleys. And you must be aware that there is a massive project of 2,000 odd kilometers of national highway.
Roads that are being constructed.
Connecting from Mago to Vijayanagar.
Yes.
That goes from the border of Bhutan all the way touching Tawang, all the other valleys which are there, and ends in Vijayanagar near Myanmar. So it's a massive work which is going on today. But definitely China had edge over us. It is our strategic planning at that point in time, whatever the government thought was right. But ultimately, we have woken up in good time. And during the present dispensation of our government, massive amount of work is going on. In fact,
absolutely,
Mr. Modi
the centre, yes, exactly.
Arunachal
Prime Minister Modi just a few days ago said that the centre is now aggressively pushing for infrastructure building and for better connectivity in several of the northeastern states as far as the LAC is concerned. And I request you to stay on with me. Sushant Sareen also with us on this broadcast. And Sushant Sareen, as far as the Yangtze Plateau is concerned, yes, militarily, in terms of build-up or the kind of connectivity that China has across the LAC, they have an edge. But as far as this particular plateau is concerned, as far as height domination is concerned, India still has the advantage, and that is something that China wants to keep countering.
Yeah, that's true. I think that has been the Chinese game plan, in many of these tactical areas, that they want to keep capturing as much territory as they can and keep changing the status quo of the LAC. Now, all the road building and other stuff which they've done, I think one of the reasons why they can do it, and it doesn't really violate any agreement between the two countries, because, for example, unlike India and Pakistan, there is an understanding that there will not be, or India and Bangladesh for that matter, there is an understanding that there will not be any, defensive construction done, within a certain range of the zero line. I don't think any such understanding exists as far as the LAC is concerned. So the Chinese are well within their rights, just as we are well within our rights to build our infrastructure. I think from my point of view, what is more worrying is that while we play catch up, the Chinese have already built up certain capabilities. Now, if I was a defense planner, then I would think of how I can counter some of those capabilities in the time that I require to build up my own capabilities. So I have to have some, some kind of asymmetric warfare, which I will have to engage in the case of hostilities breaking out with the Chinese. Now, it becomes a matter of concern because given the kind of problems that the Xi Jinping regime is faced with, the economy is slowing down, the COVID thing has exploded.
Correct.
We are seeing horrible scenes play out in China. The incompetence of the Communist Party has come out. The kind of the kind of propaganda blitz which they had done, that building up a hospital in 10 days and all of that stuff has come crashing down by the scenes we are witnessing. Their vaccines have failed. So you are seeing a lot of unrest brewing in China. Now, under these circumstances, the Chinese government, and that has been the past history, they try and divert attention. Now, one of the areas in which they could have done this was Taiwan. But Taiwan, they know that they will invite the wrath of the world on them, especially of the Americans and many of the other countries of the region. So maybe for them, India is, as far as they are concerned, a somewhat low risk kind of adventure which they can undertake to have the people rally behind the regime. And I think that is a possibility which we simply should not ignore. We should not be complacent about. And I don't think that is happening. I think the government of India and the Indian armed forces are beefing up their presence along the entire length and breadth of the LAC. We have seen deployments in that region which are quite fearsome, really. I think the Chinese themselves have been a little surprised with the kind of response they've been getting. So all of that is very good. But I think this posturing which we are doing as a counter to Chinese moves, it needs to be understood that if push comes to shove, then we have to shove right back. And that is an eventuality that we need to game, we need to be prepared for, so that we are not out, napping if the Chinese do engage in some adventurism.
Absolutely, but that kind of misadventure, if I can call it that, then that is going to be met with an equal resistance, both from the army and from the central government diplomatically as well. And that really is the hope that the entire country has from the central government. I thank you both gentlemen for joining us here on this broadcast with your perspective. We're now shifting focus to some more breaking news that's coming in. India has reported its first BF7 variant Omicron COVID-19 case. This case has been reported from Gujarat, where a 61-year-old woman who returned from the US has been infected with this particular variant. Remember, this is the dominant strain that is wreaking havoc in China, where COVID cases are on a rise. There is a sudden uptick that we are seeing in cases of this particular variant across the world, not just in China, in fact in the US and Japan as well. Janak, my colleague, now joins us for more on this. Janak, और क्या जानकारी दे सकते हैं आप हमें इस केस के बारे में?
देखिए, एक अमेरिका से एक महिला 61 साल की उम्र की वो बड़ौदा आई और वो जब कोरोना संक्रमित हुई थी तो उनका जो जेनोम सीक्वेंसिंग किया गया था उसमें अब उस मामले की पुष्टि हुई है कि जो वेरिएंट है जो चीन और साउथ वहाँ कोरिया में हमने जो देखा, जिस तरीके का अनरेस्ट वहाँ पर है, वो वेरिएंट BF7 जिसे कहते हैं, वो वेरिएंट यहाँ पर पाया गया है। उसके बाद आज स्वास्थ्य मंत्रालय की ओर से, जैसे केंद्र सरकार ने अपने स्वास्थ्य मंत्रालय की मीटिंग ली थी आला अफसरों की और एक गाइडलाइंस जारी की, बिल्कुल उसी तरीके से गुजरात के स्वास्थ्य मंत्रालय ने भी एक मीटिंग ली है और लोगों से हिदायत देगी कि अपने जो बूस्टर डोज है वो लें। और चूंकि जीनोम सीक्वेंसिंग में ये स्पष्ट हुई है कि हमारे बीच में ही BF7 का भी वेरिएंट है अभी, तो ऐसे में और ज्यादा ये फैले और कोई घातक साबित ना हो, और उसके लिए एहतियातन कदम उठाए जाने चाहिए। और इसी के चलते लोगों को ये हिदायत दी जा रही है कि लोग अगर भीड़ में जा रहे हैं तो मास्क पहने। वीके पॉल नीति आयोग के जो सदस्य हैं उन्होंने भी आज यही बात पर जोर दिया था कि जो जिनका बूस्टर डोज लेना है, चूंकि 33% लोग ही बूस्टर डोज लिया है, तो ऐसे में वो लोग भी बूस्टर डोज ले। तो इस तरीके से राज्य सरकार की ओर से भी एहतियातन कदम उठाने का भरोसा या दावा किया गया है।
जी जनक, धन्यवाद हमसे बात करने के लिए and for giving us those details. Sharon, my colleague, also with us on this broadcast for more on that. And Sharon, the Union Health Ministry just this afternoon held an exhaustive meeting of the National Task Force of several of the experts of the steps that need to be taken henceforth. The first BF7 variant of Omicron has now been reported from the country. How worrisome would that be?
Well, Poonam, if you remember, after the meeting that you mentioned, there was in fact a statement by VK Paul in which he had mentioned that there are about 3 samples, positive samples of COVID-19 that has been sent for genome sequencing, and one such sample now has in fact been confirmed that it is in fact a case of BF7. Now, BF7 is in fact the COVID variant that has emerged in China as well, where we are seeing that the situation is going out of control, where it is becoming a burden for the hospitals, for the entire government as well. But with BF7 being prevalent in India, how much are vaccines, Covishield and Covaxin, how much are they, capable of containing this infection is the prime question that will be asked at the point. Though the government has assured that BF7 at the moment, the vaccines that are present in India are very much able to fight any sort of subvariant of Omicron. Now, BF7 is the subvariant of Omicron, and like it is, creating havoc in China, in Japan and Korea, will the situation get worse? But the government of India has in fact assured the public that the situation in India is under control because we have a natural herd immunity that we have attained after the first, second wave. The recent Omicron wave, after that also we have achieved a herd immunity. Hence, the situation is under control. But at the same time, all the protocols and guidelines which are already existing in place need to be implemented and need to be strictly followed to ensure that in coming days the situation doesn't go out of hand.
Absolutely, because we're given to understand that this variant of the Omicron strain is perhaps more infectious than the previous ones. Now, we did have certain recommendations that were made after that key meeting as well. We're given to understand, Sherin, that random testing is also going to take place for international passengers at certain airports in the country.
Well, that is right, because if you see, there are in fact a demand that has been made by several, opposition party leaders as well, several experts also suggesting that given the situation in China, there should in fact be a strict monitoring at the international airports. Keeping that in mind, the sources within the health ministry has in fact been telling us that there is in fact, a request has in fact gone to the airport authorities to ensure that a random sample testing is done. Remember, the random sample testing was also done in 2020, 2021 as well. It was stopped only recently after there was a dip in the positivity rate in India, because right now the positivity rate is about 0.1%, which is very low. Seeing that, the random sample testing was stopped, but once again, to be very careful, to be very alert with the situation that we are going through, once again a random sampling test will be done at all international airports is what the sources within the health ministry have been saying.
Right, Sherin, thank you so much for getting us the latest. The first case has been reported of this particular variant, though at the moment everything is under control, is the assurance that has come to the fore from the central government, for the health ministry as well. But of course, guard needs to be up for every single Indian to ensure that we do not see a resurgence of cases. With that, we're slipping into yet another quick break on this edition. Back in a few minutes. Don't go anywhere.
Restrictions on women and girls in Afghanistan to exercise their human rights and fundamental freedoms, US State Department spokesperson Ned Price said in a statement that Taliban's decision to close secondary schools to girls last March has had a significant impact on our engagement with Taliban representatives. Taliban made promises to the people of Afghanistan and to international community that schools would reopen. Now, to get us more details on this, Abhishek Jha continues to be with us on the bulletin. Abhishek, that's a strong statement coming in from the US government now.
Yes, Vinaya, and also we'll have to see that these statements are coming at a time when Taliban is starting doing all that it was anticipated, or people were fearing of, that Taliban will start doing these things. There were a lot of opinion, and experts try to allay those fears of Taliban and saying that let them have another chance. Maybe Taliban have changed. Taliban the 2-0 have little moderate views on the fundamental aspect of his theology and ideology. But it looks like with almost more than 1 year being there in Kabul, Taliban is strictly trying to implement what it was fundamentally an organization of very conservative theories and conservative concepts regarding society and how it should operate. While it is having a relation with some countries in the region, these issues of women education, issues of minority communities, issues of non-inclusive government that Taliban is currently boasting, and discriminatory ways of dealing with people, their primitive way of punishing people, law and justice system. Everything is very sham, and with the United States also saying that the decision of not letting women have education is an indefensible decision.
The Taliban has officially announced the suspension of women's education in Afghanistan. Taliban has announced the closure of universities for women in Afghanistan. This is according to a letter by the Taliban's higher education minister. The letter states that all universities will remain closed for women until further notice. Top sources in Taliban told CNN News 18 that this ban is temporary and they will come back with new curriculum soon. Protest has started in Kabul last evening after this announcement. Earlier, Taliban had banned secondary education also. Now, to give us more details on this, I am being joined live by my colleague Abhishek Jha. Abhishek, further gags on women's freedom?
Of course, and this is not the thing that was not being expected, because initially, ever since Taliban has came into power in Kabul and almost all of Afghanistan, they have tried to increasingly ban women's participation in social arena. That includes education, because that is one of the most important area. Initially, they barred women from going to colleges. Then they separated, boys students from girls students. The classes continued. It was always a hiccup. It was always difficult for women to attend classes. In fact, in various rural areas of Afghanistan, women were barred from having even primary education. So there were multiple type of prohibition imposed on women education in Afghanistan. But now with the latest diktat that has come from the Afghanistan's official minister, it looks like the total blanket ban has been imposed on women education. And it is coming at a time when world is increasingly integrating women workforce in its prosperity, in its development. And Afghanistan, which is dealing with a lot of economic crisis and social crisis, at this time it is trying to prohibit 50% of its population from becoming part of its mainstream growth, is something that is not going to do well to the Afghanistan economy and its social milieu.
Abhishek, the last time on such a clampdown was imposed, we saw some protests happening. This time on, what is the reaction that's coming forth?
So there has always been protests. In fact, we have seen how women, like even in small groups, they tried to come on streets and protest to Afghanistan. They stood guard to colleges and students and schools. They tried to protect their rights, even in the face of thrashing and beating from Afghan soldiers and their recruits. But it looks like that now Afghanistan, when they have total control of the territory, and they have started imposing their brutal and ruthless ruling, not much of the protests could be seen on the streets, because they are literally taking people, detaining them. People are disappearing because of protest and the rights that they demand from the Afghan's current government, that is Taliban rulers. So maybe not that much of protest, but yeah, internationally it has invited a lot of condemnation, including from United Nations and including USA. So, like, while international agencies and countries would continue to work towards humanitarian aid and assistance to the people of Afghanistan, women and girls of Afghanistan, education is something that the government and the local authorities in Afghanistan will have to ensure. And if they try to bring a law where women are not allowed to attend schools, then probably not much can be done by the international agencies or outside forces in Afghanistan.
Well, this indeed is grave situation emerging in India's neighborhood. Abhishek, if I may request you to continue to be with us, there's some more breaking news that's coming in now. Now, India on women's rights issue in Taliban, we hear Ruchira Kamboj, who's the permanent ambassador of India to the United Nations at UNSC, briefing on Afghanistan. She says
Welcome back. Let's get you some breaking news coming in over the decongestion that we've seen at several airports, including here in the national capital. We're given to understand that a key meeting was held this morning where the Union Aviation Minister has now taken a strong view and has put in place a plan to ensure that decongestion happens in this holiday season. The aviation industry now acknowledges that more efforts need to go towards security and crowd management at these airports. Pallavi, my colleague, now joins us more on this. Pallavi, what more details can you share with us?
So there is an acknowledgement which has come in and also a concession, conceding the fact really from the aviation ministry that things have not actually gone according to plan. Now, there are two main problems which are emerging at this point of time, Poonam. One, of course, is because it's a holiday season, which means air traffic or passengers increase. Second, of course, in case of places like Delhi, there's an additional problem of fog. What aviation ministry sources have been telling us is that as far as the fog problem is concerned, they put a system in place over the last 1 year, so they know that they can deal with that. But it's at the congestion at the airports, the backlog of flights, the fact that there are not enough equipment, that has been done in a staggered manner. So the couple of things we already been put in place, which has eased the situation at the airports, but some more need to be done. For example, on the frisking side, as far as manning of additional staff is concerned, as far as easy availability of X-ray machines are concerned, and also to cut down on the complicated procedure of the screening which is taking place. Another big problem that the ministry is pointing out is, for example, the slow way of building up or expansion of the airport, which is Terminal 1. That work is going to be speeded up. Second, the VVIP enclosures are going to be opened up so that passengers can go through that. And eventually, they are looking at a long-term plan of 2 years where T3 will be filled to capacity. And in one sense, India overtakes even Changi Airport in Singapore, which is considered to be one of the largest traffic control airports as far as the T3 is concerned. So these are the basic steps which are being taken up by the government.
Hopefully, that brings in some respite to travellers. For the moment, Pallavi, thank you so much for getting us the latest. Moving on now, after 4 cases of the BF7 variant of Omicron were reported in the country, government sources are now telling your channel that soon there might be a decision on protocols for travellers that might be put in place. There is a possibility of return of masks on flights is what we are given to understand. Remember, it was recently that mandatory rule of wearing masks on board flights was lifted. That curb was lifted by the central government. But given the uptick in COVID-19 cases in China and several other countries, and with that same variant now being reported, at least 4 cases in the country, a similar rule is expected to be imposed on flyers yet again. Pallavi is back with us on the phone line. Yes, Pallavi.
Yeah, so Poonam, there are 2 things which are coming up here by way of our government sources. One, of course, is that there is going to be a meeting soon, and both the health ministry and the aviation ministry are going to be working in tandem, even as reports are coming in that there is a possibility of international travelers bringing in the new variant with them. So that's where a new protocol may be put in place. Also, what we are being told by government sources, we don't rule out the possibility of bringing back the mask as far as air traffic is concerned. Passengers may be asked to mask up soon. Those COVID protocols which were removed may certainly come back to place. The degree and the extent of which it can be done is also something which is going to be a part of or the purview of the meeting which is going to take place. Let's not forget it's also the holiday season. So it's going to become very, very difficult to implement it perhaps immediately, but in a staggered manner. But bringing back masks is going to be the easiest option available.
Right, so we're likely to see a return of masks on flights, and this is in addition to the fact that there could be random testing of international travellers at certain airports as well.
Random testing of international, and especially those airports where you see the maximum influx of international travelers. Particular focus areas are like to be those countries, passengers coming in from those countries, like say China for that matter, or for that matter America. See, the worry over here, Poonam, is or no one may be coming directly from China. The quick example is a passenger may be traveling from say China to America and then from America to India. And that is where the vulnerability remains. So that is some screening is something which the government is also looking at.
Right, Pallavi, thank you so much for putting that in perspective for us and getting us the latest as far as India's COVID fight back is concerned. With that, it's a wrap from me on this edition of Nation at 5. Anusha joins you next.
Good evening. You're watching Viewpoint with me, Anusha Soni. The Tawang issue continues to dominate the winter session of the Parliament. The opposition today staged a walkout led by Congress leader Mrs. Sonia Gandhi. Mrs. Gandhi also released a statement slamming the government for refusing to allow a discussion on the floor of the House. While opposition parties continue to demand a discussion, irresponsible statements, one after the other, on the India-China conflict seem to be the norm of the political discourse. Earlier, just about 2 days ago, we were discussing the statement of Rahul Gandhi, who was slammed by the BJP for saying that Chinese are thrashing our forces. Now it's Shiv Sena leader from the Thackeray faction, Sanjay Raut, who has made another loose comment on an issue concerning national security. Amidst the political stalemate over the issue, there are two crucial aspects that stand out. One is the thorough absence of any constructive dialogue and debate on a matter of national security. And second is the complete breakdown of political cooperation between the opposition and the government, which may be expected at a time like this, which any mature democracy may warrant on an issue as serious as the repeated Chinese transgressions. Cutting through the clutter and sieving through the tamasha, we discuss what lies ahead and whether constructive dialogue has been lost to political stunts. First up, a special report.
जिन्होंने 2000 स्क्वायर किलोमीटर हिंदुस्तान का उठा लिया, जो हमारे जवानों को अरुणाचल प्रदेश में पीट रहे हैं।
चाइना को इन चीज भी नहीं देगी, लेकिन चाइना घुस गया है। हम भी घुसेंगे।
It's open season between the opposition and the centre after the armies of India and China clashed in Arunachal Pradesh earlier this month. But in targeting the Modi government, the opposition is only mocking our soldiers who are bravely defending our borders at 17,000 feet despite the hostile environment. First, it was Congress MP Rahul Gandhi who claimed that our troops are being thrashed by the Chinese.
हमारे जवानों को अरुणाचल प्रदेश में पीट रहे हैं।
Now, Uddhav Sena MP Sanjay Raut has equated the border battle in Belagavi to the tussle in Tawang.
चाइना घुस गया है, हम भी घुसेंगे।
Provocative statements aside, the opposition has stalled parliamentary business for more than a week now, adamant of their demand for a discussion on China. While opposition MPs protested in front of the Gandhi statue in Parliament, Congress MP Sonia Gandhi claimed that by disallowing a debate on China, the centre is disrespecting democracy.
डिमांड यही है कि सदन में चर्चा चाहते